Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul, and this week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, I am delighted to welcome Kandes Bregman of Sea of Glamour. I featured Sea of Glamour in my second book, Cruising Interrupted, in a section called Cruisers Like You and Me, Sort of. Kandes is the consummate Holland America Line cruiser. When I met her, I told Kandes there should be a photo of her on the HOW homepage. In fact, after researching Kandes and reviewing Sea of Glamour, I opened up my Cruising Interrupted interview with Kandes by stating facetiously, "You should be in a Holland America Line advertisement." Kandes responded, "Well, I was." I am not implying Kandes is HOW's most prolific cruiser or biggest fan, but she would be a good personification of the joy of cruising on Holland America Line. First, from a sheer quantitative perspective, Kandes has cruised virtually all of her over 100 cruises on HOW, visiting 87 countries on 6 continents, and spending the equivalent of almost 4 years of her life at sea with HOW. All the more remarkable given that Kandes had been cruising with HOW since just 2000. And while perhaps there are those out there who exist, it is hard to imagine someone who is more of an ambassador for HOW. Kandes is a 5-star mariner, which is HOW's customer loyalty program, and has over 100 referrals of cruises booked and sailed on HOW, several of whom are now 4- and 5-star mariners themselves, including Kandes' children. At the beginning of my new book, The Joy of Cruising Again, I quoted a number of passionate cruisers who I was confident had immediately gotten back on the ocean. When I reached out to Kandes for a quote last year, she told me, "I returned to cruising in October 2021 for an 18-day Panama Canal cruise on Holland America Line, New Amsterdam. I was so excited to be back, and we sailed 8 more cruises over the next 7 months." Listeners, that's a passionate cruiser. Welcome, Kandes, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Hi, Paul. Thank you for inviting me today.
It's good to see you again. How you doing?
I'm fantastic, but I want to tell you I love listening to your podcast, and I am so impressed with how many enthusiastic cruisers you've found. It's just amazing that you've brought all these people together into your community.
Well, you know, I appreciate you saying that, Kandes, and I'm having a ball connecting these cruise personalities with listeners in the cruise community. It's just so fun. It's a continuation of the joy that I got out of writing the books. All that was bringing stories to passionate cruisers. So
yeah, and I love listening to those stories. And most of the people you've interviewed, I've connected with them on Instagram, so I follow what they're doing because they're so enthusiastic in what they do. And I just love seeing their trips and their experiences, which are different than mine.
great. I'm glad to hear that. So in the intro, I shared with listeners how you are a fervent HOW cruiser. Before we talk about that, though, tell our listeners about yourself, where you're from, where you live, professional background, anything you would like to share.
Well, I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, which everybody thinks their home is the most beautiful place in the world, right? Because we have such great weather, and it's a big community that people like to visit for golfing and the 5-star resorts and the fine food. So I'm very happy to live here. I live with my husband of 44 years, and we are in the real estate business.
Very good. So you are always cruising. I talked to you early in the after the cruising shutdown or cruising restart, and you had already done several cruises. How many do you think you've done since cruising started back up?
Let's see. I have to think about that because the shutdown was about the fall of 21.
Yeah, well, the restart was the fall of 21.
Okay, so it's been 2 years, and I know that I have done 16 cruises.
Wow. Wow.
Well,
I
what
Go
was
ahead.
great at the restart was that the ships were ramping up. So they were only at 50% capacity.
Hmm.
So they're trying to figure out what to do, bring the crew back. A lot of cruisers weren't ready to go back, or they weren't sure that it was going to be at the standards they wanted. But I just wanted to get back.
Hmm.
So we took as many as we could of those low capacity trips, and I found them fantastic.
Yeah, I wish I had taken advantage of those low capacity ships. I've done five since the restart, and I got back on the ocean pretty late in the process. So by the time I got back on the ocean, they were sold out ships.
Well, yeah, now everything is sold out.
Yep,
You got to really be booking in advance.
yep. What's your most recent cruise, or there's so many that you've done? What's your most recent cruise highlights?
Um, well, one thing that we did during the summer was go to Alaska, and we took 4 new cruisers with us, which is really an interesting experience because here's these people that have never been on a ship before, and now they're all excited, and you meet them and you show them the room and you get to your table at dinner, and they're just loving it. It's like, wow, this is the best thing. How come we never knew about it? I'm going to, do this again. I love the service. I love the ports. I love all the people. We get so much attention. The entertainment's great. So it's like a kid at Christmas. We're just living through that whole experience watching them.
Wow, someone's first cruise is to Alaska.
Yeah.
Imagine that. I just my last cruise was to Alaska. It actually was a combined. It was a bucket list cruise. It was a Hawaii to Alaska, and I went on it in large part because of talking to you, and talking to your friend and my friend, Captain Peter Boz, who
Oh, yeah. Captain Alaska.
yep, who's known as Captain Alaska, and I was so proud to tell him. In fact, a couple of our interviews, Captain Boz and we met a couple times in person because we're neighbors or
Yep.
almost neighbors. And the last time we met, I had just booked Alaska, and I was so proud to tell my Alaska mentor, that I was going to Alaska, and it was everything that you said it was, and everything Captain Boz said it was, and that bucket list trip, which was combined Hawaii and Alaska. I stole that idea. I got that idea from another popular content creator, Professor Cruz. So I went on the same exact itinerary, and it was. In fact, I did a whole podcast on that trip, and I don't normally do podcasts with just me talking, but I just had to give my reflections. But it was great. So what else have you done post lockdown or post restart?
Well, the other thing that we have always done is the crossings. So I don't know if you've ever done a crossing or how you feel about it. Either people like them or they don't.
It was on my bucket list. It is now booked, so I'm doing my first transatlantic crossing in April. It's going to be on Virgin Voyages.
Okay, fantastic. Well, you're going to love that. Um, what we did this fall was we fly to Amsterdam, then we do the Baltic, then we go back to Amsterdam, and then the second leg is Belgium, France, England, the Azores, which is very unique. It has this gorgeous lake that's part blue and part green. And it's just amazing. It's like nowhere else. And then you continue all your sea days to Fort Lauderdale. So it's a 30-day trip. But for me, there's plenty of ports in the beginning. So I get to get out and be active and see lots of things. And then the 5 days that you're at sea, I love to just sleep, eat, go to the gym, read. I can document all the things that I want to write about my trip. I always bring several kinds of books with me, some educational books, some fun vacation books, and then just enjoy the ship life.
Yeah.
The ship life is really great. And when you're off in ports every day, you lose out on that. So,
well, my transatlantic starts with 8 sea days. And so, and I hear all of these great things about Virgin Voyages food. So I have vowed during those 8 sea days, I'm trying everything. I'll probably gain 8 pounds during those 8 sea days. So,
well, you can walk a lot.
so let's go back to the beginning, Candace. Talk about your very first cruise, which, if I understand, if I recall correctly, is the only one not on HOW.
That's right. It was Royal Caribbean. It was a beautiful ship, and we had a great experience. And the reason that I got on it is that the company I worked for acquired a smaller company, and that particular company had a sales award trip for the top performers. So it was their president's club. So as the VP of marketing, I was asked to host the group on that trip. So this was great because I was going to go on a week-long cruise out of Miami, and I was going to get paid for it because I'm working, and I was going to host these people having a fun time. So it was my first cruise, but not their first cruise. So these people had it down because they had won the sales trip before. So they had all their tables set up. Every night they sat at dinner. They rotated who was with who. They knew all about the food, what to order. They had all the great drinks. They knew how to go out and have fun at night and where to go. So I learned from them. And it was great. And at the end of the cruise, everyone had a really good time. I went back to work and never thought about it again and never thought I'd take another cruise.
And then you decided to try HOW and never looked back. Talk about that.
Well, I didn't pick HAL and I didn't plan on going on a cruise, but we had friends who were travel agents, and it was their wedding anniversary, and they wanted to celebrate it on a cruise. They were bringing their children, and they invited us to come with them. So we said, okay, great. That'd be a good experience. They know the ropes. They'll show us around. So they booked the rooms. They did everything. So we got there. Well, she's an excellent travel agent. So every day she had something planned for us, and she had the experience. So we were in the Caribbean. She knew all the right places to go. Everything was booked, taken care of. And we had like this fantastic trip. And we said, this is great. They happen to be Dutch, which is why she picked Holland America. And she wanted us to go on it to experience the culture and the art and the food, and all the officers at that time were Dutch. And my husband's from the Netherlands, and the travel agents are from the Netherlands. So I think she thought, okay, the American needs to get this experience. So we went, and it was good.
She was right. She called it right.
It was right. She was right.
You then became an avid HOW fan. Give us some highlights of those early years on HOW.
Well, after that cruise with our friends, then we felt pretty comfortable and started going back on cruises. It was different back then because it was very formal. You would wear on dressy nights, they were gala dinners, you wear ball gowns, tuxedos, they would have these big 5-course dinners. So it was much more dressed up in an experience then, where now it's more casual and fun and seeing ports. So that's kind of how it felt. For us, we mostly went on school holidays because we had 3 kids. So we'd start going on New Year's because we didn't want our kids going to other friends' houses on New Year's. We felt like if we're on a cruise, we know where they are, we're all together at dinner, they're safe, and they loved it. So then we started doing Christmas and New Year's, because when we did the 7-day cruises, it'd be the Caribbean or it'd be Mexico. Well, now when we did Christmas and New Year's, we could do 14-day cruises. So then we could do the Panama Canal, or we could do Hawaii. So they got to go to more fun places, and they met a lot of kids their age. So they loved it like we did.
Yeah, I love Christmas cruises. We're going on a cruise for Christmas this year. This will be our 3rd Christmas cruise.
And do you take your kids?
Yeah. Well, it's a funny story. So the first time I went on a Christmas cruise, we were kind of moping around. We had just moved to Florida, which was, 1,000 and something miles away from my grandkids and my kids. And we had our first Christmas with no family. And we were so sad. And so we booked a booze cruise, if you will, on Christmas. Christmas Day. It was like a 3-day cruise, leaving out of Florida. And it was kind of known at the time as a booze cruise. It was the Norwegian Sky, back at a time where they did all you can, open bar. The whole cruise was open bar. And so it had a reputation. But we took the cruise, but then when we got on it, it was full of kids. I thought it was just going to be full of boozy adults. And so every time kids got on the elevator, dressed with hats on and all that, we start thinking about our we just all it did was depress us. So we quickly decided that we wanted to do a real Christmas cruise with the extended family. And that was a special cruise, not only because it was with family, but that's when I got the idea to write The Joy of Cruising. It began with that Christmas cruise with family. So that was the second one. And then the third one is coming up this Christmas. A little nervous about it because it's on a line we've never done, MSC. And it has its share of mixed reviews, but I'm sure it's going to be great.
It won't matter because you're with your family, so you're going to have a good time no matter what the cruise is.
That's right. The last one, on Christmas Day, we were supposed to go to Royal Caribbean's private island, and we had gone all out. We had rented a cabana, jet skis, all of that. And Christmas morning, the captain came on and said, because of weather, we have to miss the stop. And that sounds like it would ruin our Christmas cruise, but we didn't miss a beat. We had a great time. So.
Yep. And my kids say, we remember when we were younger and we had the big tree and all the presents, but we don't know what the presents were. But we do remember every cruise, and they remember all the kids they met on the cruise and all the things they did.
There you go. So unfortunately, then came the pandemic. Did you do anything special during the pandemic? Run a marathon? Grow a pandemic garden? How did you spend your time? Someone who's on the ocean so much.
Yeah, that was rough. It was really hard. And my nephew was moving here with his family. So our immediate family was about 18 people. So we had our little bubble. And because we're in Arizona, we could be outside. So every weekend, everyone came to our house and we did homemade pizzas and cooked and had fun, and we were all together. But we wanted to travel. So we found an alternative, and it's called the Riu Hotel. You may have heard of it. It's an all-inclusive hotel, and it's owned by a Spanish company, and there's actually a chain of them. They're in quite a few places, but we went to the one in Mexico because that was a 2-hour direct flight.
Okay.
So you book your flight in your hotel, fly there, take your cab. Once you get to the hotel and you walk in the door, it's like being on a cruise ship. I had this whole new discovery. It's this big, beautiful hotel, a gorgeous swimming pool right on the beach, sandy, chairs, umbrellas, all the alcohol is included. So you just sit in your lounge chair and the guy just keeps bringing you drinks and you just give him $1 tip.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are 4 or 5 restaurants, an international buffet that had the most incredible food. I loved it the best, but also 3 or 4 specialty restaurants. And you could go to those as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we just lived it up. We loved it. And we probably went there 3 or 4 times.
Wow. So you got to travel during the shutdown. Unlike me, I'll tell you, Candace, I felt like I was in prison. It was
I
terrible.
know.
So
I know. Well, when we went to the Riu Hotel, the funny thing is there were only like 10 people there.
mm-hmm.
It was sort of like the restart when the ships were at 50% capacity.
Yep.
People were afraid to travel, so there's no one at this hotel. But I'm on the beach and there's only 2 other people there.
Talk about that first cruise back. I know it was a special one. I think you said you went to Panama Canal.
Are you talking about my long cruise?
The first one from after the pandemic.
Oh, yes, that was the Panama Canal.
Wow. How many times have you been there?
Oh, I don't know. It's like Alaska. You know,
Yeah.
we've done it a lot of times, maybe 8 times.
Wow. Yeah, that one's definitely on my bucket list. I've never done the Panama Canal.
Oh, well, you're
In
going to
fact,
love it. And
yeah. One of the podcasts was with a former crew member. He was with Princess Cruises, and it discussed his first contract. And on his first contract, he went to the Panama Canal every week because because that was the
yeah,
itinerary, and he was very involved in that because he was the ship's videographer. So that was an
oh, well,
interesting
then he would
episode.
give you great information.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
But you loved
fascinating.
it, huh?
It's fascinating how the ship fits through that canal. So you're standing on one side looking at it going, there's only like 12 inches of space. And then you run to the other side and it's like, there's only 12 inches of space over there. And we're going through very slowly. And just
Mm-hmm.
watching the whole thing was great. And because we've done it a few times, the last time the dining room maitre d' said, would you like to get a table in the dining room? And they gave us a table on the back of the ship and watched the whole thing going through the locks.
Wow. So you started with the Panama Canal and did 15 more cruises up to now. So you came back to cruising with a vengeance. What do you have booked?
What do I have booked? I have so many things booked that I had to make a spreadsheet and then I did a binder with tabs for every month and put it in there. I couldn't keep it straight. And then my husband would say, well, we booked that trip, but did we book the air with it? And do we have a hotel? Do we have a car? And it was hard to keep it all straight. Let's see.
What are you most looking forward to? I know you look forward to all of your cruises, but
next year we're really going to travel, like all in, big focus. So first thing in January, we're going to do the Panama Canal again.
mm-hmm.
And we always get the ABC islands, Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire, and I love going there and I know them like they're home. So we'll do that. In the spring, I'm looking forward to going to Greece because I haven't been there for a while. And also the UK and Ireland because we haven't done a lot in Ireland. So that's good. The summer, we're going to do Greenland, Iceland, Scotland. And that's a really interesting trip to do Greenland and Ireland. You're going to want to do Reykjavik. You
Uh,
will love it.
just about everything you're naming, well, not just about, clearly,
Are they
all
on your
the
list?
locations that you're naming are on my bucket list. Which is why which is why I ask this question in every interview, because my bucket list is dynamic. It is constantly evolving. So you just added more to
Well,
it.
when I'm on a cruise, I try to post something on Instagram of the highlights of that cruise. So you can follow all the highlights of those places and they'll stay on your bucket list, I'm sure.
Given that you've done so many cruises, do you even have a bucket list? What's on your bucket list? What
Um,
I can't imagine what you haven't done. Although I'm sure Hal has some limits in terms of their
yeah,
itineraries.
there's really nothing on my bucket list because I've done everything that I want to do.
Hmm.
But I like going back to my favorite places, like in the Med. And people will say, oh, well, I don't want to do that. I've already been there.
Hmm.
But have you really? Because, yeah, you went one time and you got off the ship for one day in that town. You didn't see everything. And
Hmm.
if you go back, it might be a different time of year. You go see different things. You're with different people. You have different food. So I can go back to the same place 10 times and it's new to me every time.
I went on my first med cruise in October, and you're right. I wouldn't hesitate to go on another med cruise. We went to Italy, France, and Spain, but I'd really like to do the Greek islands.
Yes, yes. It's different, which is why it's so nice.
Hey, a curiosity question, Candace. Um, do you think you will ever try another cruise line?
Uh, no,
No? Okay.
I
That's
I could. We've talked about it. We thought about, oh, should we go on Virgin because it looks really fun and upbeat and a new ship, and we know um, people who've gone to work there. But the reality is, I love Holland America, and they love me. And because I'm a high mariner, I feel very spoiled and they take good care of me. So even our kids say, oh, our friends go on all the big ships with the slides and the fun things. But we know if we go with you on Holland America, we're going to get such good service and treatment, and they'll go out of their way for us. We'll go with you.
hmm
So they'll give up all the amenities on a big ship.
okay. Have they gone on other ships?
No,
Okay.
I have three kids. They're all high mariners and they've only gone on Holland America.
Candace, before we let you go, a couple of fun cruise questions, and then perhaps an oddball question. The first question, I just like to ask this so I can get ideas. My Alaska cruise was a 16-day cruise, and because of all the recommendations I get from passionate cruisers like yourself, I can say that on that cruise, I had the ultimate drink package or the unlimited drink package, but I never ordered the same drink twice in one day because I like trying stuff. So what's your favorite cruise drink and cruise food?
Well, that's funny because we have another couple we travel with, and every single night we go to the bar at 7 o'clock, and he tells the waiter, come up with some new exotic drink and bring it to me. So
Oh,
every
maybe
night,
maybe that's something I should try.
and they'll ask him a couple questions, and every night they come up with a whole new thing, and then we all try it, which is fun. But for me, it's a lemon drop. So every night I order a lemon drop.
Now, is that a lemon drop martini, right?
Yep.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
How about food?
Um, we go to the dining room every night because I want to sit at a table and be served and enjoy the company that we're with and be able to talk and visit. But the food that I like the best is the red curry chicken in the Tamarind restaurant. and you can order it at whatever level of spice you want, and I want it as hot as possible.
And that's a specialty restaurant?
Yep, the
Ta-
tamarind. It's
the
Asian.
Tamarind. That's on most Holland America ships?
It's not on all of them. I think it's mostly on the bigger class ships.
Hmm.
And the other specialty restaurant they have is Rudy's Sel de Mer, which is also really good.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
have Dover sole. So that's my go-to there.
Now, I wonder, is that I assume that Rudy's is related to there's a Rudy's Sea Grill on Carnival because
Yeah.
they're the same corporation, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rudy is fantastic. You should follow him on Instagram. He's very enthusiastic and he has all the chefs in the kitchen involved, and he's very active, always on a ship working and coming up with new recipes and out meeting the public.
I will follow him. Maybe I'll reach out to him. Sometimes I just take a shot and reach out to somebody and I get him when I didn't expect to. So,
Well, better yet, I'll introduce you to him.
oh, you know everybody.
Well, yes, I know all the right people.
Yeah, Candace, please do.
Okay, I will do that.
Next question. So, what's your most memorable or funniest or outlandish or even embarrassing cruise or port experience?
Mm-mm. There are so many stories I could tell you. I wish you had.
I remember the one in the book where your kids showed up and I can't remember the location and they went into your room before you knew they were there. Remember that?
Yep, yep. Oh, yeah, that was one of. We had been on a 51-day cruise, and our kids, we were in New Zealand, and our kids had to get themselves from LAX all the way to New Zealand to the cruise port on their own. And my son was the oldest, and he was probably 14. And he's
Wow.
got his two little sisters in tow. I'm thinking we didn't have cell phones at that time. And it's international, and how are you ever going to find them? And I was just so distressed. And what had happened is they got off the airplane, they got their luggage, they got on the HAL bus. The HAL bus took them to a hotel. And he looks and he's like, well, there's the ship right there. I mean, I know that ship inside and out. He took his sisters, went to the ATM, got some money, went to McDonald's, got some food, got the girls, walked down to the ship. He goes up to the counter, checks in, gets his room key and their room keys, and they go up, walk in our room and order room service. They're just living it up, having a great time.
Great, great. 14 years old. You should be
Yeah.
proud.
Oh, yeah.
Any others?
Well, another one that's really interesting is we were bringing our next door neighbors with us, and this was their first time on a cruise.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going to Mexico. We're having a great cruise. They just were thinking everything is so fabulous. The dinners are fabulous. All the specialty restaurants, they're loving it. They're so excited. They're probably 4-star mariners by now. But we went to Hualtuco in Mexico, and it's a small town and a port that you don't go to very often. And everybody's getting off the ship, and we're waiting, and then we're going to meet our friends to go off. And I went out on the balcony, and I'm looking at the beach to kind of see what the weather's like. And I said to my husband, those umbrellas are blowing over. And he comes out, and everybody's kind of scrambling, and they're trying to get back into their little restaurants. And it rains a little, and we're not sure what's happening. And then we felt a little jolt. So I went over to the glass elevator to see out on the other side. There was a microburst, and it pulled the ship away and burst the cables. Have you ever
Wow.
seen those mooring cables?
I've seen that. In fact, I read about one breaking away recently. But what's a
Yes,
microburst?
I read that too. It's just like a windstorm that is unexpected, and it just comes up, and this strong wind hit the ship, and then that giant cable broke, and it was just like thread.
Wow.
So the ship pulled away from the dock. The gangway is dangling against the ship. and were stuck out there. Fortunately, there were no people walking off onto the pier at that time. And it was quite an experience, and you don't really realize how bad it is when you're in the ship.
Mm-hmm.
But the captain was fantastic, and it's one of the things I like about Hal is I always feel safe and secure wherever I go. So he was brilliant. He made an announcement. He let everybody know what happened. Every hour he gave us updates. And basically his strategy was, he said, I think that I should wait for the tide to come up, and then we'll be able to pull ourselves back to the dock because we're stuck in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, he ordered 2 tugboats to just be on standby in case.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fine. And he kept making announcements as the day progressed, and they were checking if there's damage to the ship and could we sail, and divers were going in. Now it's the end of the day. Everyone comes back from their tours, had no idea what happened. But the ship is like now getting uprighted, and he's out on the dock, and he met every single person. So eventually the tide came in, the ship got uprighted, the passengers all came back. And I have to give a lot of credit to Captain Jeroen van Donselaar, because he stood out on the gangway and he greeted every single person that came back. He had all of his officers there. They were very welcoming. They explained what had happened, apologized for the delay, and he stayed till the last person had boarded back on the ship, and then he went to the bridge and sailed. He also that day, well, he's always really smart. He didn't go in nose first. He goes in back first. So the nose was pointed out to sea, because I think if it had been the other way around, we could have been beached and there would have been damage to the ship. So quite an interesting day, unexpected, and it was an experience. That's part of traveling and part of life, and something I'll never forget. And the way it was handled was so amazing.
Now, when the ship left, things were normal.
Everything was fine. They had divers
Yep. Mm-hmm.
to just like go underneath and just make sure there were no cracks or anything was broken, and we were safe to sail.
Wow. Wow. Okay. The final question, what I call the oddball question, because it's not necessarily anything connected with cruising. You have a large following, and welcome to the Kandes and Sea of Glamour friends and family and fans listening. Share one thing that my listeners and your friends and family and fans don't know about Kandes.
Well, I'm an open book, so everybody knows everything. But I can tell you one thing. It's a little bit of a secret, and something your audience and my audience would also be interested in, is the pinnacle of Holland America's recognition program is President's Club. And most people wouldn't think about President's Club or what it means or how you get there. But it's for people who have traveled 1,400 pure sea days. So that's almost 4 years at sea. And they're very loyal, respected cruisers of Holland America. And it's a very, very small group of people. And at this time, it's my goal to get into that club next year.
I was getting ready to say, you got to be close, because I even said in the intro, either almost or virtually or something like that, 4 years at sea with Holland America.
Yeah, you're right. You did. And I really never thought about President's Club or wanting to be part of it. But now that we're so close, we said, okay, we're going to cruise every month for the next 9 months and get all of our days in, and then we'll be part of that group.
Well, Candace, I know we're going to have you, or I should put it this way, I'd love to have you back. So that would be a perfect opportunity. We'll have you back when you ascend to that exclusive club. We'd like to hear about it.
Okay.
All righty.
Okay.
Kandes, it is so good to get to chat with you again. Thank you for coming on the Joy of Cruising podcast, and thank you for being so supportive of me over the years. You know, you got an excerpt of my feature of you on the Holland America blog done. You introduced me to Captain Boz, beloved Howe Captain, enabling me to feature him in the Joy of Cruising again. And he was on, as you know, podcast episode 37 a few weeks ago. So you have been wonderful to me in this Joy of Cruising journey, and I thank you so much for it. All the best, and we're friends on Instagram, and so I'll be keeping up with you as always, and you'll be keeping up with me as always. But we know we're going to have you back to celebrate your President's Club anointment.
Well, absolutely. And I'm honored to be part of your cruise community. And I'm going to continue to listen to the podcast and hear all the great stories of all the new friends that you make.
All right. Well, Kandes, as they say, I will see you on the ocean.
Sounds good.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.